There it is. All right.
There we go.
Put him up there. Hi, Danny. How are you? I just talked to you.
I'm doing well.
I know. Do you agree with my take on Tyron Woodley?
Yeah. I mean, the stats are there. I mean, this is the guy that's always fought. He's a very active champion. He shows up every time. And I understand there was some criticizing of Tyron Woodley early on when he first won the title, and he's like, I won GSP, I won Nick Diaz, and he was demanding certain things. But if you look at the press conference now, he's like, if anybody, whoever wants it can get it. Like,
and he even said, I'm not going to call out anybody anymore because it doesn't matter. Exactly. I'm not saying Tyron hasn't made missteps. Everyone's made missteps. That's not the point.
Yep.
But the point is, again, I don't know why Dana White wasn't there, and no one really does, and so you have to be careful. But either way, it's a bit of a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, this guy just proved that he's going to be dominant for a while. He's 36, but like, a good 36.
Yeah, super solid.
So wouldn't you want to, keeping in mind that he's probably going to be champion for a bit, wouldn't you want to, prop him up and make him, feel like a big asset of the UFC, and make him feel like, like one of the greatest fighters ever.
And it's easy to market. Oh, by the way, Look how good he is, right?
Exactly.
Super simple. All right.
Yep.
With that out of the way, let's get to these calls. You have screened them. We don't have a moment to waste.
Yep.
Why don't you set up the first one, please?
Cool. So we have a ladies first policy here in the MMA Hour.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to go with.
All right.
Hey, Luke. Hey, Danny. This is MT from LA. Love the show. Long-time listener, Luke. My question is, what do you think out of all the different ways to get into the UFC is the best, like the prestigious and most advantageous for the fighters? I wonder, do the fighters get better contracts by winning the Ultimate Fighter, being scouted on looking for a fight, winning a contract on the Contender Series, or just kicking ass in other promotions and building a name for themselves, and then being approached by the UFC? Which one do you think provides the best contract terms, exposure, and distinction? And also, what are your guys' thoughts on the Triple G Canelo fight Saturday? I have Triple G winning for sure, but want to know what you guys think. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.
What a great question that is, huh?
Dude, that is a great question. Something I never really thought of. If you were a fighter, what do you think, and you're trying to get into the UFC, what do you think is the best way to get in?
Well, given the three options that she had basically listed, which is Ultimate Fighter, Contender Series, of course, you can just be signed to a...
Looking for a fight.
You can also just be signed to a show, like to somebody off the regional scene. Like, It doesn't have to be a vehicle per se. For sure, you can cross out the Ultimate Fighter, for sure, because those contracts have been known to be quite restrictive and to suppress pay. So that's out of the... yes, there's a degree of visibility that comes with it, but in terms of pay and compensation, probably not. So that's out. I don't know about the Contender Series, so I can't really say, although obviously we know guys like Sugar Sean O'Malley got some pretty great exposure. So certainly it's that. But I think the real answer is if you're a John Jones and you come in and you beat Andre Guzmão and you start blowing through people, that's a great way to get paid. But the reality is the Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez model was probably always going to be your best. Look at what Héctor Lombard got. I won't say which fighter it was, but there was a fighter in the UFC at the time who I was talking to back when I did the Spike TV show, and they sat down, they go, dude, did you see what numbers Héctor Lombard's getting? And I'm like, no. He goes, I've never, ever seen a check like that. And this was somebody who was very important to the promotion. I think he was getting $300 or $400K for that first fight. And did it ultimately pan out in a way that he should have?
Yeah.
You can make that argument that it didn't. Point being is, when you're an acquisition, when you have to be acquired and you have some value in another organization, Danny, it's my impression that's far and away the best.
Yeah. I mean, if you're able to make a name for yourself in MMA outside of the UFC, that's by winning a title, whether it was, World Series of Fighter for Justin Gaethje or Eddie Alvarez with Bellator, Michael Chandler, these guys, that really is the way, because you're a champion. Worst comes to worst, if negotiations don't go your way with the UFC, you're still a champion in another promotion. You're getting treated well. And you can use that as leverage to get a pretty good contract. I would put the Ultimate Fighter as the last at this point.
I think how many guys have complained about the pay?
Yeah.
So many.
I mean, I think at one point, maybe the Ultimate Fighter, like in the first 10 season, that was like, oh my God, if you're the Ultimate Fighter, that was a big deal. It was very prestigious, right?
Yep.
But that doesn't stand anymore.
All right, what's next?
Cool. Now let's talk about Tyron Woodley and some UFC 228 topics.
All right.
What's going on, Luke? This is Dylan from New Jersey. Just wanted to get your thoughts on Tyron Woodley's performance this Saturday night against Darren Till. I feel like everyone always wants to write off Tyron Woodley, but in my opinion, he's one of the greatest welterweights of all time. I really think that if him and George St. Pierre fought when George St. Pierre was in his prime, it would be a lot more competitive than people would think. I think Tyron Woodley is approaching the GOAT conversation as 36 years old, and I feel like he's got plenty of years left. Just wanted to get what you think about his performance and where he ranks among the greatest of all time. in welterweight division and the whole of UFC. Thanks a lot.
Another great call. Wow, I'm very impressed. Good job, y'all. Really appreciate that. That's great. Danny, here's what I would say. I don't know where you come down on this one. I would put him around 2 or 3, and I would state the following. I know some folks had Jake Shields ahead of him. I know Jake Shields beat him, but I don't think the body of work at welterweight, as impressive as Shields is ahead of Tyron Woodley's. I don't buy that. More to the point, the real tension for me is between him and Hughes. Now, Hughes did a lot in that division. Hughes has some great numbers himself. I was very much cherry-picking in favor of Tyron Woodley, but I was just trying to make the case for what stands out for him. But the issue is, like, if you look at the guys Tyron Woodley has beaten, it's a much more difficult set of fighters he's run through. Now, there are some amazing wins on Matt Hughes' resume. Please, folks are going to look at Hayato Sakurai and be like, who's that? When he beat Hayato Sakurai, that was a big deal, okay? And he kind of ran through Hayato Sakurai. But the point being is there are some, Gil Castillos on there that aren't nearly the same level of title defense difficulty that Tyron Woodley has. So I could understand a case for Tyron at 2, but I'm still going to lean just outside and say 3. However, if he beats a Colby or something like that, at that point, you have 5 title defenses, all of them being consecutive like that, I would have to put him second.
Yes, I mean, I think, where you and I differ is I recognize a lot more and I put a lot of stock on achievement and accomplishment. Like, if you get a prime Tyron Woodley and a prime Matt Hughes at the same time, there's no doubt Tyron Woodley's going to run through Matt Hughes, right? But it's different times. So I think, with Matt Hughes having more title defenses, that just has to put him ahead of Tyron Woodley. But again, Tyron Woodley has the chance to surpass that and challenge GSP maybe. I mean, he still has a lot to work with, but I mean, who knows how long he's going to be in the division for,
I still think GSP is markedly ahead, but to your point, I mean, you're beating 25-year-olds like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're really good.
Yeah.
All right, next.
Hey, this is Josh from Lafayette, Louisiana. I was calling to say, do you think Till's loss in the end will be a good thing because it'll force him to move up to 185?
Danny, you want to go first on that one?
Yeah.
I see you raring to go. What's up?
They asked him in the post-fight conference, they were like, okay, so does this mean you're going to go up to 185? And he's like, that's the question. That's the real question. I made 169. The weight cut was easy. So I don't know if it'll force him to 185. I hope it does. So you
want to see him at 185, despite the fact,
Yes.
let me play devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
He was 169. Like, there was no problem making weight.
That's true, but also, Darren Till is like one of the toughest people out there and mentally strong. I mean, that guy, for him to say it was, an easy weight cut, it wasn't. He's just that tough, And if you look at, I think when we went, Casey and Esther were at the PI with, I believe Mark Ramundi was there as well. I think they were shooting Darren Till at his open workout like 10 days out from the fight, and man, he was looking rough. He was looking very rough. And also, I just want to add, I in no way am I comparing my physique to Darren Till's, but we both are. Yeah, we both are 25 years old, and something I've noticed myself, like between 24 and 25, like I wasn't even working out, and I just felt like I was getting bigger and heavier, and I was like, what's going on? And people at my jiu-jitsu was like, oh, you've been lifting. I'm like, yeah, sure, So I think Darren Till is in the same range. Same thing happened with Max Holloway. Like, all these guys are making weight, but all of a sudden they're going into a body that's closer now to like a 30-year-old than it is to a 20-year-old,
Yep.
And, that's dangerous. And we've seen the issues that Max Holloway has had. So I think maybe this cut was fine for him, but moving forward, things are just going to get a lot, harder for Till. So
there's no denying that middleweight's a better spot for him in terms of his size. Here's what I would say, though. Did he lose on Saturday because of a weight cut? Did he lose on Saturday because of a size? Well, he had the differential in his favor, but I mean, like, was he so drained that this rendered him incapable of fighting up to his potential? No. Like, what do I think of Tyron Woodley? I think Tyron Woodley, dude, here's what was so amazing about him. Did you not love how he came out the gate? People were like, oh, he was aggressive from the start. But right, that's not an accident. He was setting the tone right away. Right away when the fight started. He got in his face, throwing big punches, staying in there, countering him, moving, doing all the things he needed to the point where Till was offensively, not shook exactly, but thinking and a little bit reserved as a consequence. What a veteran, smart move that is.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that from him. But for Darren Till, Like, he just lost. He even said it. The better guy won. He's just a better guy, at least today. Maybe in 5 years, that won't be the case anymore. But tonight, or at least on Saturday night, it was. So my point being is, I'm not going to sit here and argue that 185 is not a better weight class for him ultimately. But if he can still make this weight in the same way, I don't necessarily see a need to change competitively. Maybe for health reasons, but not competitively. That's my only argument.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just with the whole thing of him going blind and just looking at him very already drained 10 days out, like, I just don't want to see him at 185. And even in the build-up, I mean, he's getting, 170, my bad. Even in the build-up, he was getting ready for a title fight, and there was tons of talk of him openly saying he was going to go up to 185, and that to me is a red flag. So, I think he wants that shot again at Woodley because I feel like he's not happy at all with his performance, and he even told him to his face, he's like, "Yo, I want that second shot." But man, I think 185 is his move.
And the other part that's interesting to me is like you talk to people like Cyborg when they were trying to was she making 140, right?
Yeah.
And if you talk to her trainers back then, they would say the amount of road work she had to do to get it, like there's just the amount of I'm just working out just to keep my weight down.
Right.
Like it has no functional value for the fight itself. It's just for weight management. It was an absurd amount of road work.
Yeah.
So you can cut that out, and how much fresher would he be, right?
Yeah, and that stunts your growth as a fighter because if you only got 24 hours in a day, and if you're allocating all that into cutting weight rather than working on technique, adding new tools to your arsenal, so it definitely can stunt your growth.
Fair enough.
Cool. So now let's move on let's keep talking about Till, actually.
Hey, it's Rudy Rue. I'm calling from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And my question is, if Till does move up to 85, after suffering that loss from Woodley at 228, who should he face and why?
Ooh.
So let's say Till decides to go up to 185. How would you match him up?
Boy, that's a great one. So let's look at the rankings right now. This is always kind of helpful. However you want to assess how good they are, let's look at middleweight. So I would say outside the top 10, right? Because you need some kind of introduction. You've got Shoeface at 11, Thiago Santos at 12, Uriah Hall at 13, Elias Theodorou at 14, Krzysztof Jotko at 15. I think somewhere in that Thiago Santos, Uriah Hall, Shoeface, somewhere 11 to 13, to me would be a great one. Maybe if you want to go outside of that just for, purposes of making them earn their keep, you could, but I think that would, you're going to tell me a fight against Shoeface wouldn't be interesting?
A fight with Uriah Hall. That'd be fun.
Thiago Santos isn't a bruising marauder. All of those would be good. So that's kind of, to me, giving him a shot in the top 10, not saying he couldn't beat those guys. It's not an issue of, I don't think he can beat him. It's not that. It's that, you got to work your way up a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's a nice way, I think, to start.
I think so. I think I would love a fight with Uriah Hall. I think that'd be super exciting. And down the line, imagine Adesanya versus Till.
Oh my God,
that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, where's Adesanya? He's sitting at 9.
Yeah,
and even Brad Tavares. I just wouldn't feel comfortable giving him a Brad Tavares fight. Maybe he wins. Maybe he blows the doors off Brad Tavares. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't you agree with me that 11 to 15 slot? That's really where it should be because he was a title contender, one division down. That does mean something. But not enough to just jump the queue on guys like Shoeface. Bro, Shoeface has been in there grinding. You know what I mean? So,
and on top of that, I mean, regardless of the loss, Till's still a very valuable asset to the UFC. He's young and he's got a huge fan base. So, you don't want to do what they did with Francis Ngannou, and match him up with someone as tough as Derek Lewis. You know what I'm saying? You want to build him up. You want to give him a little bit of confidence. So don't put him in the top 10, at least not.
Very quickly, though, that gets back to my weigh-in argument. People are going to say, oh, well, they rushed these guys. Look, some of them have been rushed. Yes, some of them have been rushed.
Wait, I'm gonna stop you right there because the next question is exactly
okay.
About
Fair
that.
enough. So, you got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So how do you know a prospect is ready?
Great question.
Hi, Luke. My name is Chinmay, and I'm calling from Mumbai, India. Big fan of all your content and the show, so thank you for that. So my question is, at what point do you know a prospect is ready to go to the next stage? Specifically in the context of 3 people, Francis Ngannou, Darren Till, and Zabit, who's now asking for a fight with either Aldo or Chad Mendes. Thanks.
Boy, what a...
Hey, how on point are my organization skills, man?
Oh, yeah, they're really good. And great minds think alike, too. But I got to say, these questions are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenally good questions. Wow, very good. Like, I'm not even just saying that to be nice. No, really, these are really good questions.
And before we go on with the topic,
Yeah.
that was actually a voice recording.
I could tell. I was like, God damn, this.
The MMA Hour at voxmedia.com. So if you can't call our hotline because you're international and you don't want to, drop the money on international calls, you can always send us an MP3 to that email.
I was like, my man's calling from Vonage or something. He's got good. By the way, fun fact, Danny Segura, I was born in India. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yes, I was born in New Delhi, India.
Interesting.
My sister was born in Beirut. My brother was born in Paris, and I was born in New Delhi, India. There you go. All right. So on to the question itself. How do you know a prospect is ready? There's a lot of things you're looking at, right? One of them is who are they beating? You can just sort of say, what does a resume look like? The other one is, are they looking different fight over fight? Can you see clear progression? Zabit, to me, is showing progression in some areas. Some areas I still think I'd like to see him clean things up a little bit, but fight over fight, he's beating tough guys and looking good doing it. You're looking for that. You're looking for how are they training? Are they with a good camp? There's just a few ingredients about who are they beating and how are they doing it, which I know sounds very, very imprecise and unhelpful, but consider someone like John Jones, didn't know who they were, right? You bring him in, and he just not only beats Andre Guzman, but beats him kind of easily. Then you have him against Stephan Bonner. He's throwing spinning back elbows, and you say to yourself, my God, this guy's got no experience. He's doing this. He's learning off YouTube. There's something going on here. There's a ton of natural ability. He can already beat these guys basically blindfolded. You watch him progress fight over fight, and that maturation, that skill development, all of it becomes just sort of blend together. So how do you know a prospect is ready? The truth is, you don't. You don't. You can argue that Ngannou was rushed. Dude, Ngannou was out there knocking people's blocks off. And I didn't think that the Lewis fight was all that tough for him relative to guys he'd already fought. The question, and I made this point before, was I thought they let him go too long in the Stipe Miocic fight, which is a completely different scenario that's taking care of people and making sure they don't take too much of a beating, which is another sort of thing you can look at, like is a prospect taking a lot of damage or not? That's something else. But I guess you're just trying to figure out how good are they and what are they showing you in an iterative sense, fight over fight. If they're beating better guys, but they're doing it the same way over time, you should have some pause. They're just taking guys down the whole time. And you could say, well, Khabib does that, but Khabib does a lot more than that. I'm speaking more of sort of like a John Fitch type. It should give you a little bit of pause about their upside, but the reality is you just don't know. You want to see them have enough requisite experience. And by the way, Darren Till's got, what, almost 20 fights? People are like, they rushed him. Well, they rushed him relative to his age, but not so much his experience necessarily. And Francis Ngannou, they rushed him relative to his experience and not his age. A little bit differently. So anyway, you get the idea. Danny, what did I miss? I didn't give a very helpful answer, but it's a bit of an eye test.
I would actually, something you missed, and I would actually argue that Darren Till was a bit rushed because sure, you can give him a million fights, but part of it is also giving him different looks. I mean, if you look at his last two fights, it was Stephen Thompson and Donald Cerrone, both strikers. You kind of want to get him against a decent wrestler, and then if he kills it there, then you go, okay, well, maybe against Woodley he could do well. But Woodley took him down, and he had no answer to that. So you want to give them different
Woodley
looks.
Knock him down?
Right, he did, but I mean, he couldn't get back up for a while. I know he was probably rocked and all that, but
those elbows, in fairness to Darren Till, were
they were
nightmarish.
They were quite rough. But you want to give a prospect different looks. You want to see how he does against a jiu-jitsu guy, a wrestler, a striker, different types of strikers, and then you know how good he really is. If you just give him the same opponent all the time, you're just getting one look.
So this is a great point. You're right. Like you begin to see how good someone is. Look, eventually, everyone in MMA gets hurt. Everyone in MMA finds somebody who's got something on them. Maybe not the entirety of the skill set, but something of an Achilles heel. And the point being is you have to give them all these iterative tasks so that, yes, they look in an iterative sense better than the last time, but that they're answering for, all these many variables that happen as well. I'm trying to think of like a good test in that. John Jones is one, obviously. He's sort of the one that stands out. I would say Khabib's a good version of that. Conor McGregor's a good version of that insofar as, and I made this point before, people early on in his matchmaking were saying, oh, they were giving him favorable matchups. Well, sort of. Here's my point about that. Early on, I think that they did. I mean, giving him Dennis Sievers and Diego Brandows and whatnot, these were absolutely favorable to him. But the entire time, he was working on his overall game. And look, once you get to the point where you're fighting the Chad Mendezes of the world and you're fighting the Jose Aldos, unless you go on some terrible losing streak, you can't go back anymore. You have to fight the guys in that space. So my thought was, I thought the UFC handled it right. Give him just enough room to breathe while he gets better on the rest of his skill set. You're going to say this is preferential treatment. Yeah, sometimes it's worth giving a guy preferential treatment if they can reward that preference in the end, which I believe that he has tenfold. So by the time you have to fight the guys who are super elite and there's no going back, now you're ready. Now the rest of those portions of your game have been brought up to speed. Now you can do big things. And I really believed that that's what they had done with him. That's a really good version. Brandon Vera, for a while, was a bit that guy. When he beat Justin Eilers, that was impressive. And then they gave him Frank Mir, and he ran through Frank Mir. I thought Fabricio Verdum was a bit too much. And then, of course, the wheels came off the bus a little bit on that one. But there was a time where you saw that sort of iterative growth. That's a good version. Frankie Edgar got a nice iterative build-up, so you could see fight over fight. These bigger guys, these different skill sets. Yeah. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We have Dean on the line. We did not get to all of our calls. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Dean, and then after that, we'll do all the rest of our interviews. At the end of the show, we'll finish up on your calls and finish up on your tweets. I'm sorry about that. We had to rearrange the show last minute, but we're going to make sure we get everything done. Now, with that being said, pick 2 calls.
Okay.
Pick if there are some evergreen ones, save those. But if there's some really timely ones,
sure,
let's do that.
Well, we just wrapped up with Shevchenko, so let's talk about her.
Okay, do it.
Dave from Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I just wanted to know who you think Valentina Shevchenko should fight for the women's flyweight title. At this point, I think she's pretty much hands above everybody in the division. I think that she would literally annihilate anybody who's in the top 10. I mean, is the only answer at this point bringing someone in from another weight? What do you think?
To me, if you'll recall, Nico Montano's run well, she got the title, but her run generally has been a bit snake-bitten. You'll recall she was supposed to fight Sijara Eubanks. Sijara Eubanks actually out of Washington, D.C. They call her Sarge. And she was supposed to fight Nico Montano and had a weight cut issue, I believe. And so they brought in at the last minute Roxanne Modafferi. She just got a win. Sijara Eubanks did over Lauren Murphy, I believe. So I would go with her. I think she's probably the most deserving contender. I think she's ranked pretty high in that division. That, to me, is my answer. Danny, you got a different one?
You know, I guess, yeah. Eubanks is a good option. Some people have thrown out there Joanna Jędrzejczyk. You know, I mentioned it on the MMA beat. It's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. I'd be open to that.
Yeah, I just have a bit of an issue with her cutting the line, but promotionally, I can't deny what it would do.
Yeah,
right.
And at this point, I feel like anybody you plug into that equation is basically fine. I think the biggest factor is getting Valentina to fight. She's the rightful person to be challenging for that.
I have to say, though, if Nico finds a way back to the cage and can stay healthy and can win and earn a title shot,
yeah,
assuming that Valentina's champion, which I think is a fairly safe assumption at that point, kind of nice to see the fight. What a grudge match, huh?
Oh, yeah, that would be something for sure.
All right,
yeah,
what else?
That'd be a nice build-up. We have a few other questions, but I'm going to pick this one just because...
time constraints, yes?
Yeah. So let's talk about some two-old vets.
Hi, my name is Bill O'Brien. I'm calling from Newfoundland, New Jersey. I just had a quick question for you, Luke. I just wanted to know your favorite Diego Sanchez and Jim Miller fights and memories. And also, actually, if you think that training with the high-level grapplers from like Kenzo's team has helped guys like Sterling and Zabit Magomed Sharipov. All right, thank you for taking my call and have a great day.
Jersey in the house.
Yeah, I think let's just answer the first part. I don't know if we want to get to the second.
Sure. I forgot. The second part was about the grappling, yes?
Yeah.
For what was the first part? I'm sorry, I forgot.
What was your favorite memory for Diego Sanchez?
Diego Sanchez is a very easy one.
Yeah.
Number one, when he walked out to La Bamba. Woof. I mean, it's this deeply cultural moment that he had, because La Bamba is the interesting song because it's for the Hispanic Americans who lived in America. Mm-hmm. It's not a song that's like you're from Colombia and that someone is here playing. Right. It's actually from those people. So it's a really important song for that community. I gave the chills, but really it's not that actually. It was after the fight with Martin Kampmann. His face was a disaster. Yeah. And there's a famous scene, they have it on video, I don't know if there's anywhere you can find it, but I remember seeing it. Both Dana and Lorenzo went backstage to go see him, and his face was nearly falling off because it was so cut. And he was talking about his corazón, heart.
Yeah.
And they were just blown away, and I was too. It was as if nothing had happened to him other than his face was destroyed. It was perfect, Diego Sanchez.
Yeah. I liked when he brought the mariachi band into the octagon. Remember that?
I don't actually.
He did. It was one of his early fights, the Nick Diaz fight. I mean, early Diego Sanchez when he was undefeated, the Joe Riggs fight. He just looked like a killer, man. He was fun to watch. And remember when he walked out with the cross?
Yes.
And he was
the
just
Jake Ellenberger fight.
Yeah. I mean, he has so many good moments.
For Jim Miller, I'm not sure. He's kind of had a bunch of good ones.
Joe Lazon fight.
Joe Lazon fight was a good one. He had who's the Brazilian guy he armbarred? I forget now. He's had a bunch of really good ones. Nothing that was like quite as antic-filled and crazy.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, pretty good. I'm sorry, I'm doing Jim Miller a disservice. I'm not a fair historian of Jim Miller. Was it Diego Ferreira that he armbarred? Who was it?
I think so. Here, let me pull
I have forgotten since then, but obviously, you're 30 fights deep. Some of them get lost a little bit in the shuffle because that's such an incredible body of work. What do you have here? Who was the armbar? It was fairly recent. All right, this is terrible air.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't. We can come back to it.
Fabricio Camões.
Camões, that's it.
Yep.
Camões.